spoken a couple of times. The one time it's all pretty much kind of a sequential thing. The first time was a lot about choice, and we talked about, at that point, the thing that was helpful that you said was you talked about how in a tribe of monkeys or apes, how each of them have their roles and whatnot. And then the last time that we spoke, it was another one where I would tend to hide behind non-duality when I was doing behaviors that weren't necessarily beneficial. And so I've taken that advice, and now what I'm noticing is as I operate, I'm seeing more and more of, I don't even know that I would say I'm seeing it, but I'm kind of, there's this element that it's not a Marianne talking to a Lisa. It's I don't even know what to say, but so I'm experiencing that, and it's becoming more evident or more out there until I encounter family members. And then I literally notice a constriction within myself. And it's like the rest of the world, there's this great, an empathy, a forgiveness, not even a forgiveness, but an acceptance, seeing a beauty. The other day I saw a little gal who was mentally handicapped, and before it would have been, oh, how horrible for her family, or how horrible for her. And all of a sudden I was like, well, but of course. For her, but then a family member might walk in, and I'm all constricted and like, why do they act like that? Why do they that way? Why don't they? What the heck?
This is quite a complicated part, but it's really obvious when you really understand the functioning of yourself how that's happened. It's basically because you've sold yourself to them, in the sense, and they've sold themselves to you. You've behaved how they've wanted in order. Sorry, Alanga keeps calling. It's so funny. When he does that, it goes right over your face. He was doing that the other day, but I've moved you to a place that I don't think he'll appear now. So basically, you've repetitively over years sold yourself to them, and they've sold themselves to you. Now, what I mean is you've collectively agreed to behave a certain way in order for there to be the most peaceful situation. Now, I'm not saying it is peaceful, I'm saying the most, because it could be worse. But you've all agreed to take on certain roles and behaviour and to stick to it. Now, you've not consciously agreed, you've unconsciously agreed. So you've all agreed, even if you don't like your role in the family, even if you're the bad one or the screw up or the whatever it is, or the helper, whichever role it is, you've agreed to be that role. And everyone has their fixed role. And you and the others all have to commit to their roles in order for the family to work. And sometimes you're allowed to change roles and be slightly different, but most of the time you have to be the person that they've known over the years. And you have to stay to that, and you're not allowed to change.
And when you change,
and
then when you change,
they can't handle it. They can't.
You in their presence, right?
Sorry?
Nor can you in their presence, because then it's like you have to get back into
the old role. So this is why it brings up suffering for you again and again, because you've all collectively agreed to be people together in order for peace, actually. That's why, because if you all take on these roles, then you all know how to behave together and you all know what the rules are. But what it actually does is it constricts you, and it makes you passively aggressive to each other.
Yes.
So you
really not enjoy each other.
Yeah. So you don't want to. You want to pull away from each other. Sometimes you'll enjoy it. Oh, sometimes. So lovely eyes, or he. She. Part of the reason I was late today actually was this beautiful husky decided to tag on, and we had to take it home again. And it had the most, those huskies with like bright blue eyes. You're like, oh, looks at you and it's like gives you shit. It was very sweet. But so you've all collectively agreed, and it makes you all safe because you know who the mother is. I mean, imagine if your mother suddenly started behaving radically different. It would be shocking. It makes you all feel safe in a way, because you know how to relate to each other. But it makes you passive aggressive It makes you all a bit frustrated, and it makes you like, one thing that I can't stand in families, and I'm so lucky, my family are really, I mean, there's issues, but one thing I like about my families is they're very on the surface. So even though actually they most probably argue more, I hope my mum's not going to be watching this one. She most probably will now. She'll be in Canada, like. So we most probably argue for what some people would be, but we don't argue as in we. I feel what I like about my family. We have other negatives. If we're very expressive, so if we feel annoyed, we show our annoyance. And I find it difficult when I meet families, when I've had boyfriends or friends, families that are those nice families that are always like, oh no, let me help you. And they're like really sickly sweet. No, let me put it over here for, no, let me take your bag. Like my family isn't, my mum's, when I come into the house, I haven't seen her, she's like, have you got your shoes on? And like, I like that energy. Like my mum is so out there, like so open to being and saying, she doesn't think, oh, I shouldn't say that. She just says it. But there's an honesty there. I'm not saying that my family is enlightened, but I like that honesty. A lot of the time in families, you're all playing a game to get on, but it makes you all unhappy and constricted and tense. So there's an underlying tension, and if any of you try to change, the others will all gang up on you because everyone's pissed off. They've had to play this game. This is not conscious at all. This is all unconscious. But they get annoyed because they've had to fake it. They've had to be this role. Then how dare you change? And so there's an annoyance there when anyone does begin to question what they think or feel. And so it's a really interesting, funky dance. And I think it's great for family to challenge what's still left there. Like what issues still get stuck, because it's like a way of a warrior, because you're going to upset people and people aren't going to like you changing. You don't have to wear non-duality on your t-shirt and speak about it with them, but just in your whole being, when you begin to deconstruct yourself, your personality is going to change radically.
And so, because I think that's happened. Yeah, I don't wear it on my sleeve. I don't think. I mean, I think there was a period of time I was wearing pretend enlightenment, and then I was. But now I know it's not there. So it's like whatever. But there is. I mean, yes, I don't play by the rules anymore necessarily because I don't want to follow those. So yes, all that tension you describe is absolutely true. So it's a matter of whenever the get-togethers happen, it's a matter of enduring.
Yeah.
Even though on the surface it looks pleasant.
Yeah.
But it's not, and I think I leave there really even upset with myself for why can't I get along? Why don't I?
Yeah.
So then I think I leave there feeling like a jerk.
Yeah, well, but that's one thing if you feel like a jerk, but I see everything as like an experiment. So what in your situation, what I would do is I would go into these family parties as an experiment, and I would look at it like an experiment to see what's happening in your body.
Okay.
So to see the reactions that's coming up in your body. So to be with people, to feel that urge to want to say something when you actually have nothing to say, but to feel the urge to say something, or to feel that urge of annoyance. So I would use it as an experiment to feel what's going on underneath your immediate reaction. So your reaction is to speak when actually you don't feel like speaking, or your reaction is annoyance at some comments, and to keep. So you're going to be lost in the action, but every so often to just go back to the feeling and the sensation underneath and see what you're actually feeling. And more than likely, a lot of the time when you're in the family situation, what you're feeling is lack or fear.
Totally.
Which then produces either over talking or not talking or withdrawing or being grumpy or snapping or losing your temper.
Pretty much I feel this like barrier come around. Just this, it's like I put on all this armor.
Yeah.
That to go, like I'm going into battle.
Yeah.
Even though on the surface it does not appear as that at all. And if anybody looked, it's a pleasant conversation. But I think it's the shedding of the roles, maybe.
Pleasant conversation doesn't mean pleasantness. Pleasant conversations can often be very passive aggressive. Like it's all about energy. Like with my mum's feisty, I don't know why I'm going for my mum tonight, but she's feisty, and I love her spirit. You know, when she was 30 in the 60s, she bought her own place by herself, which was totally outrageous, and she was a computer programmer. She's a feisty woman, and I never feel from my mum, even though she's got her issues and she can be fiery and she always says what she thinks. I never feel that passive aggression from her. That aggression that I feel like you're nice, but it's not nice. Even though my mum might not be described as a nice person, I never feel that underlying thing that you have. So when someone's smiling and nice, energetically we can sense it. It doesn't mean they're being nice, and it doesn't mean they have nice energy. What we actually like and we respond to is honesty. That's what makes us open, is actually someone being honest. Even if they're being grumpy, you'll find if someone's grumpy and they're being honest, there's a genuineness there, then you'll have an open heart to them. It's when then they're all lying and they're all in a pickle trying to make you believe they're someone. Like trying to make you think that they're something other than they're not. This is when it gets all funny, the energies. When they're honest with you, even if it's anger, your energy naturally syncs and flows with them like a river. You flow together like a dance happens. If they're not doing that, what they're doing is they're blocking you and pushing you away.
Right.
And it is invasive. It's more invasive, someone energetically blocking you, than words. And you must notice that sometimes. Like some people can say things and it's really offensive. Some people could say the exact same thing and it's totally not offensive. Which is, it makes it so hard for laws of what's allowed and what's not allowed, because it depends on the energy it comes with. So even though it's nice on the surface, I'm just sure there's so many issues underneath of resentment and bitterness. And
oh, there are. I mean, there's one, not to name family members, whatever, but I mean, I remember after going, this individual loves to hate me.
yeah,
But the surface, it doesn't appear that way, but there's so much resentment that I feel.
yeah,
And then, yes, of course, the not good enough, I mean, it's totally, I've gone into, as I explore it afterwards, I can feel that, and I could feel one day I was going to go with one family member somewhere, and I was like, why don't I want to go? Why don't I want to go? And it was, I didn't want to be in that person's presence.
yeah.
For that, because, yes, I think it does. We've got the pretty little package, but it's not really there. And then this feeling of, and I don't even know what this authentic me that I want to show is. I don't know that it's any different. But
No, I think, no, authentic really is when you're acting from not a place. So now, when I feel we're talking, you're just speaking, and I'm just speaking. You're not giving it too much thought. The mouth just opens and it's speaking, and it's not about giving it thought, but you're not trying to convince me you're someone.
yes.
So then there's this, that is authentic. It's like it's not about what we say. It's not being truthful. You know, I get all my stories confused and my memory's not great. It's this place of not trying to make the other believe you're something. It's an openness, an honesty. You're not, obviously the body's playing a game, as in like it's all moving towards pleasure and avoiding pain, but in the moment it's just coming out rather than coming through this filter of trying to be something else. Like when the speakers, and when I say about coming from nothing, and this is going in and out all day. So in the day suddenly you get contracted and you feel offended, and then you want to try to be something, or you go into a situation and suddenly the peacock feathers come out and you want to try to be something, and then that kind of switches off and you're making a cup of tea, and then a genuineness comes out.
Right.
And so the authentic self doesn't look like anything. Depending on my energies, I can be so many different people. So I can be the sexual Lisa, I can be the loving Lisa, I can be the comic Lisa. I used to always think I had to be one Lisa, but it's loads of different Lisas that appear, dependent on the energy that she's in front of and the energy that's coming up in her. It's being honest. It's not trying to fix it into one thing. This fluidity. And then also who I truly am, what is that which knows Lisa, not the appearance of Lisa. That which it all comes from.
And so in most circumstances recently, I'm feeling that until the family situation, and then I'm trying to reconstrict and go into the peacock, or the daughter that does this, or the sister that does that, or and that's what.
And you'll also notice though that you also are putting up the cages of other people, because you have to, in order for that to happen to you. So you suddenly then see them as something.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. because the forgiveness I give to other people for, like you say, some person says this and another person says the exact same thing. This person gets all the latitude in the world to say it, but when the family member says it, it's like, oh my gosh, why did you say that? Right? And it's
Yeah.
like, so yes, as much as I am put in the box, they are put in the box by me. So it's like, is there a breaking or a softening or a...
Yeah, no, that's happening. I mean, it's just the fact that you're willing to talk about it, you're exploring it, you're into non-duality, the deconstruction of you is happening. So the listening to non-duality and listening to that you are not, that person is being experienced, isn't you? So that the non-dual side, I would say. And then also this other part, which I suggest, is keep putting the attention back onto the lack and the fear, and seeing how that produces these functionings, and it will soften because there will stop being an acting out of that. That energy will begin to loosen. It's loosened in all the other areas, and it will loosen in the family, but they always say if you think you're enlightened, go and spend time with your family. My thing with my family always used to be, I have such a great relationship with my mum and dad now, but my thing with my family used to be that, you have this idea of what peace is, and I just love my family's fire now. I'm fire. I have fire in me. Like it's, I used to think that peacefulness was a way of being, but peacefulness is not trying to be someone, and that doesn't look like anything. So when I'm with my family, like I just love, like they're so funny, like they're so funky and sparky and full of life. There's Whereas before I used to think that peace was being like a Buddhist or something, and I used to think they needed to be peaceful or they needed to not say things. And it's like, and we have such a laugh about it because like my mum can be spiky, or not spiky, like she can have a jab. She'll be like, oh, here goes Lisa again, she's going to smash everything. I'm known as the clumsy one. And like, so this is my title. So if anything's broken, if anything's messy, it's always Lisa. So and it's like, and now, whereas in the past I would try to block that energy, now I find it really funny. And then I'm like, hey, yeah, here goes the daggers. And it's like it becomes like a dance. It's like a dance between us. Like I'm not rejecting that fire. It's not like I have an idea anymore of what they need to be. They are as they are, and I dance with that energy. And when I'm with my parents, I'm so much more... Sorry, now I've got my spicy dog telling the other dog that he's got to go out. No, Kalisa, you don't tell him that. It's not your job. Like peace, we get these ideas of what we need it to look like. And it's... Yeah. And really, it is as it is in each moment, and it's always changing, and it's a response, it's a dance in the instant, and it's letting go of any ideas about what you or they need to be at all. No morality sticking to anything, no idea. But this you have to keep coming back to that lack and that fear, because this is what blocks you and makes you close to them.
Okay.
And then and they will begin to change in certain ways when you stop blocking them, but then in another way there might be a moving away from them. Like,
okay.
There might also be a moving away and not dealing with that energy so much. I've got to admit, I really dislike these big family parties that my mum makes me go to. Oh. I'm like the single spinster. When are you going to get married? When are the kids coming? And I'm like, what are you doing with your life?
But now that doesn't offend you?
No, and I do it for my mother. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't for my mum. I do it because my mum, I say to her, look, Mum, I really don't like doing this. And then I say, do you want me to do it for you? And she says, yes, and don't say you don't like it one more time. And I'm like, okay.
But then that's okay, because that's part of the dance as well.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do things for my mother. Like,
Okay.
I find my mother's energy very enjoyable. So I'm happy to do things for her, but I also limit it. I say, okay, I'll do this one, but I'm not doing the next one. So she just had her 40th, and I was like, okay, I'll do this one. Her 40th wedding anniversary with my dad. It was like...
Yeah, because I mean, it's... Okay, I'll have to just explore. So in the presence, because today actually we had a family thing, and I noticed a couple times it was, I mean, yes, the chitter chatter or whatever, but then I also would notice that there was an okayness, which is the first time I felt that for a while. Like I didn't have an armor, and then all of a sudden I went, oh my gosh, I don't have my armor on, and then I put it
Oh
on.
yeah. Oh nice. But it's nice that you tasted that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of fear there
Yeah.
to not have it.
Yeah.
On.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I mean, I mean, you make it sound like it's not a big deal to not have the armor. It's huge. It's huge. We know most people normally just in with family have huge protection systems on. It's huge to stand there vulnerable and naked in front of people.
Yeah, yeah. Even telling you that now, it's like, oh my God, I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I guess maybe and I think now I see the contrast because I feel like, I mean, with my immediate family here, I don't have it on. There's no rules. It's kind of very, everybody can be what and who and whatnot. But, and most of the time I believe when I'm going out in the world, it's not on. But so the contrast of when it goes
Yeah.
on and when it's off is really big.
Yeah, yeah. It really doesn't feel. It doesn't feel nice.
No, it
I
doesn't.
notice. But but it gives you compassion because that's what most of your family are in. They haven't even questioned it a little bit. So most of those people are in that. They're not even aware of it.
No.
That armored, dead state of really protecting
Yeah.
everything and pretending it's nice on the surface. Oh yes, this person's wonderful, and this is this, and
Yes, exactly. So, okay, all right. Well, hopefully we won't have a get together for a while. And this leads me to the other thing that I wanted to ask you, or just make comment about, was I listened to you Wednesday, and it was kind of fun that you went on a rant about marriage and whatnot.
Oh yeah, yeah. I knew I was gonna. I actually surprisingly didn't get much feedback from that. Sometimes when I go on a rant about something, I get really shot.
I think what I loved about that was, like you said, the authenticity, and I think that's what you're talking about even now, was, again, my old image of what enlightened or whatever would look like would never do something like that. Would never say, and so I guess...
I don't remember exactly what I said, so so when you say like that, I can't really remember, but I get the picture, but I can't really. I remember going off on something, but I can't really remember what I said.
You did. You went off. It was very. It felt like a very strong opinion, and it felt like a very strong. And more than anything, it doesn't matter what you said. It was just that it felt like that. It felt like a strong opinion, a very a solid stance.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think that surprised me in the sense that I think I have an image of what enlightened looks like
Yeah.
that won't be there.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a mistake.
Um.
Do you understand my question? I'm not even sure what my question is, but I guess, do I still? I mean, will?
Oh yeah, to still be strong opinions. Like I'm really. I mean, I'm a real. If I were to be honest, I don't really understand the principle of communism. But if I were to speak about a society, I really disagree with the distribution of money. So I don't understand the principles of communism. I understand that it wouldn't work in our society, but I have very strong beliefs in this. And I really also disagree with the treatment of animals in our society as well. I'm not against eating animals, actually. I think that's really normal. But I'm against the treatment of animals, and I'm against the distribution of money in our society. And I think it's really stupid capitalism. Like a really... And but that's just Lisa's opinion, and it doesn't really matter. And I'm not really... I wouldn't ever... Like, would I go into an argument? I went to say I wouldn't ever argue about it, but it's like a fun. It's more like a fun thing. Like this week we... do you know what happened in Europe this week?
Yes.
That we...
Yes.
That we basically, it's like, what happened in England is like you guys getting Donald Trump as your president. Basically, racism works. But that's a really strong opinion. I mean, that's a really controversial opinion in the UK to say that out loud. So that's a really controversial opinion, I would say. But I also find it really fun and exciting. Like afterwards, me and my friends are all texting each other like, "What sort of society do we live in? How has this happened?" But those friends, having said that, those friends are all married, and I can't express my marriage views to them.
But the views, so the views will stay.
But they're not anything. I just find it fun. Like I find it really. I love. I love it because I'm a Gemini, a triple Gemini. So a lot of my energy is in philosophy, thinking, communication. I love it if somebody came to me with a really outrageous idea and explained it to me, and we picked it apart for hours and hours. Like
So that's pleasure.
that's a great pleasure for me. So if somebody came to me and said that we actually humanity originated from an alien, which I think a lot of people theorize about, an alien genetic got put into us, and they had all this information. I would love exploring that with them for hours and hours and hours and hours. Somebody was recently telling me about this new money form that's happening on the internet, where it could replace money, and I was so interested. I found that fascinating. So I love all these things, and I love having heated arguments, like passionate arguments with people, but I also don't care.
Okay.
Like I was also a bridesmaid for my best friend's wedding recently, even though in the middle of the ceremony I was like, but and I wouldn't say it to her because I know that she takes marriage too personally. Like to her, I wouldn't say it to her because I know that was really special for her. And I know I'm saying on this, but I also know she wouldn't watch it. I would say it to her if she really, really asked me for my opinion. But for that instant, I know that that was a really important day for her and a really important thing to happen to her, and she really wanted that. And if she asked me my opinion, which she was very careful not to, because I suspect she knew what my opinion was, I would have told her, but I wouldn't have outly said it to her. Like, so I don't, yeah. Yeah.
So we will. I mean, so there's just that. So a continuation.
But it doesn't offend me anyone's opposite view.
Okay.
Like her view about getting married doesn't offend me. Like it doesn't. It's not. It's not. It's not that it offends me or not offends me. It's like that's the spice of life. That's that bundle of energy. I personally don't agree with it. I personally am not into that. I'm a lefty to the extreme. But I find that funny as well. It's not like I'm right. It's just this bundle of energy. I grew up with a father who's a vegan and a businessman, and like I'm always gonna have these sorts of. I love deconstructing everything, and I love being fair and looking at all the different ways to be fair. But that's this personality and this juice and this, and I find now that my opinions in a way are more so because I'm not afraid of expressing them, or I'm not afraid of them. But I really am not afraid of anyone disagreeing. In fact, if someone disagrees, it makes it more fun to discuss.
And then in the end, it's just that it's not personal.
And it's not real.
And it's not real.
Yeah, I mean.
So it's just words coming out.
Yeah, and it's just It's just a fun. It's like playing table soccer. You know, it just means nothing. It means nothing really, ultimately, what society we live in or how it's organized. I have my opinion of what I think would be the best, fairest, loving way. But it doesn't mean it's the right way, and that will have problems too. The freedom is always this instant, and each character will have its flavor. And as you begin to accept yours more, you'll accept all other flavors. I remember when people used to have the opposite idea to me, I used to find it offensive. Yeah. I was angry with them for having the opposite idea. Whereas now I'm dressed up in my bridesmaid uniform with like totally, like this is alien to me. And I'm like, da 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 da. And I was like head bridesmaid. And I had to do the buying of the presents. And it was like, but I loved it. I loved that as well. I loved doing the whole thing. I loved also feeling sick in the speeches. Like they're not really sick, like a child, like like that.
So in that it's because I think probably again it's the misconception of that you lose all of that. Lose when you say you lose your world, it's not necessarily that you lose your preferences or your...
No, not at all, not at all. This is the big mistake. What happens, I mean, Lisa drastically changed, but she still always had her same flavour. But what happens is that there is, Lisa used to be the experiencer of life. She used to feel like she was the experiencer. And now, what's talking to you, what's speaking to you is total silence. And then there is a flavour of Lisa, although she's invisible most of the time, there's a flavour of Lisa that comes up. And actually, really, other people see Lisa more than this sees Lisa. This is more flavours, like sensations, feelings. The words come out, but I'm not even really listening to it.
Uh-huh.
And it's just energies that pass through, and somebody says a idea, and I also have ideas about who I think's the best tennis player, or how to bring up a dog. I don't know much about kids, but dogs. What else do I? And you tend to have your own passions. Like I like exercise and bike riding and like all those sorts of things. Trying to think of things like intellectual things I like. I like politics. I like thinking about how to make this us live better together. I like thinking about psychology and the workings of the people, like of humans and animals, all those sorts of things. Environmental issues I like thinking about.
Yeah, I think there was the misconception that that would go away.
What goes away is any attachment that that's you, and it's you really don't need anyone to see you like that anymore.
Okay, so it can come and go and be.
Yeah. Before it used to be like I needed to be seen a certain way.
Uh-huh.
Like that was me, and I needed people to see me like that. I don't even know what Lisa is. Like when you said that thing about marriage, I wasn't even really sure what you were talking about. And then it was like, oh, because sometimes I'm trying to follow what people say because my memory is so bad. And then I was like, oh yes, I vaguely remember.
Uh-huh.
And then it sort of came back more and more. And then,
okay.
But it also makes you free to speak like that, because I know that that's going to really offend a lot of my... I know that most of the people that are listening are like, I'd say 70 or 80% of them are mostly married, and they had to be like... I'm not against people that are married, and I kind of find it funny that my mouth opened up and said it. Like,
yeah. Well, and I didn't get offended, and I am married, but it was no, because to me, what I found fascinating was the freedom of the rant.
Yeah.
I think the only part, I mean, listening to you, I thought it was funny and whatever, but I think the freedom of that rant was what was I loved, and then also just that you still did. Yeah. Because it broke two misconceptions for me.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't what you said.
But because I'm doing it, it means that when you're in front of me, if you do it, then more than likely this energy won't be rejecting it, because it wasn't rejecting its own rant. So then, therefore, if you suddenly went on about how George... I mean, I would love it if somebody came on and started saying... I'd find this really fascinating opinion. If someone came on and started saying how Donald Trump should be the next president, and I have met someone recently who said this, and that argument was fantastic. It was a really good argument, and it really made me ponder it for a while. Like I went back and thought about it, that Donald Trump should be the next president. And their argument, I didn't fully understand it, but we just talked about it briefly. Their argument was because the richest 2% is on Hillary's side. And I was like, so the people with the money are actually backing Hillary. Donald's kind of on his own. The only problem is he might nuke everyone. But he hasn't got the support of the richest people, which is a good thing, because we're always being dominated by the very rich companies. So Hillary's got their support. Donald's kind of by himself. So but this took ages for him to explain this to me, but I was like, woohoo, I love it that somebody's just challenged my idea of Donald Trump. So.
And it was a play that you guys did.
Yeah, well, it was just happening. It certainly was interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think you've answered my questions.
Yay! Lovely to speak with you again. And to see you this time.
Yes, okay.
Thanks.
Much love. Talk to you
Much
later.
love. Bye. You see, guys, now... sorry, I think... I just have to stop record again, and then I'll start. So, hi guys. So you know the difference, and I'm going to keep pointing this out again. Did you notice that Marianne was asking for from a very honest place, energetically? Now, not what she was saying or the surface conversation. What you'll notice it as is you won't be wanting to reject Marianne. I know that's an odd thing to say, but you'll feel sometimes when people call in, because they're not being genuine, so because they're trying to be something, then there's more of a rejection of them. Because they weren't, our energies really flowed and we really spoke. And there was just a sync that got going together, which is really beautiful. I'm not saying that the ones where it doesn't happen is really beautiful, but I'm just trying to point it out. The last couple of sessions I've been pointing out those energies. And it wasn't so much about what we said or about her opinion or my opinion or what was right or wrong or anything on that level. It was more that neither of us were trying to be things. So maybe there was a little bit, but the energy really began to flow together naturally. And you'll notice this in every day with other people when you're putting up barriers, when they're putting up barriers, and when those barriers are beginning to fall down, and it just feels like love. And that's what it is love. And then eventually you get to a point where you just feel like every conversation is making love to them, even if they're pro Donald Trump and you're pro communism, even if you have these two extremes. And also, I'm really not offended by people's opinions. You know, you have the freedom to have any opinion you like and want to be, because none of it is real or serious. So you're loved as you are. The most important part is not what you show and what people see of you, it's that genuinity. See, some people, like there was this other guy that I blocked on Facebook because like he was being very racist against us leaving the EU, and I just felt he came from such hatred, like in such denial. Yeah. Okay. Next question. I can